Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also on the BrightShine right here in the city of Memphis, in the county, Shelby State, Tennessee. Today, date, Sunday afternoon, November the 9th, 2025, time 3:30 p.m. First thing, thank my fans, my support. Really continue to keep myself employed in that Memphis tri-state area and continue to further my education by going back to school, studying business administration, concentration, and marketing, trying to earn my associate's degree. At this present time, I took a break from going to school. In the future, I do intend to go back to school and continue to work on earning my associate's degree in business administration, concentration, and marketing, as well as other degrees. Now, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to start my Facebook Live. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also on the BrightShine right here in the city of Memphis, in the county, Shelby State, Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, November the 9th, 2025, time 3:32 p.m. First, I thank you, my family, my support for you, continued encourage support. I'll continue to keep myself employed in the Memphis tri-state area and continue to further my education. I continue to work toward earning my associate's degree, studying business administration, contract, and marketing. At the present time, I took a break from going to school. In the future, I do intend to go back to school and earn my associate's degree in business administration, contract, and marketing, as well as other degrees. Now, first I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the Son of God, for all the blessings and the guidance He provides us all with. And continue to pray and continue to pray about natural disasters. We hear about it each and every day, because we live in a day and time where the news, advancements and progress, improvements in technology, and natural disasters occurring all over the earth, all over the globe, all over the planet. And when they say a disaster, that's exactly what it is, a disaster. So let's continue to pray about these natural disasters and continue to pray about wars that are being fought, continued on this earth, on this globe, on this planet. We as human beings need to learn that war is not the answer. Give peace a chance. Now, I'm thankful today that I was able to make my video today. I had to work last weekend. I had to work last Saturday, and so I wasn't able to make my video and things of this nature. But I'm glad I was off this weekend. And let me also say this while making sure it's on my mind. Let us say a prayer. That was a tragic, a very, very, very tragic plane crash. I know many of us have all heard about the UPS plane that went down, and for the victims, let's take a moment to pray for the victims, and just to say, to pray about the plane that crashed, the UPS plane that crashed, and pray for the victims and all their families. Just take a moment and pray. like I said, anytime something like that, I mean, it's very, very tragic. The loss of life, and hope and pray that something like that doesn't happen again. As for the government shutdown, the Democrats and the Republicans still haven't got past this ridiculous shutdown, and the people are not being able to get the benefits from the SNAP program. So let's continue to pray about it. But I can't see this happening again, and just see the American people, just sitting there waiting on the Democrats and the Republicans to just open the government back up and to be sitting around talking about food stamps again. I don't see myself sitting around, any suggestion like that again. Behind this should be the last time that the Democrats and the Republicans even suggest at the federal level, at the state level, as well as at the local level, talking about some shutting down the government. See, everybody don't live in the same place. Everybody don't live in the same place. So when you think about the federal government, okay, then you think about the state government, okay. Think about local government. Everybody don't live in Memphis. Everybody don't live in Shelby County. So when you think about local, talking about shutting the government down, like I say, hey, everybody don't live in Shelby County, and everybody don't live in the city of Memphis. So when it comes to government services, and you talking about at the local level, everybody don't live in the same place. So this whole method that the Democrats and the Republicans, see, it's not just one side. It's not just the Democrats and it's not just the Republicans. It's both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Behind this, there should be no more even considering talking about government shutdown, period. That method of trying to address issues is not the right way to address issues. Now, like I said, I'm making my video today, and Now, now, I'm looking at the screen, and when it comes to this Gnostic foolishness, like I said, they don't know the exact origin of this foolishness. Now, when we deal with artificial intelligence overview, Gnosticism was a diverse group of religious and philosophical movements that flourished in the first century, in the first few centuries CE. Believing salvation achieved through secret knowledge, gnosis of one's divine origin, is characterized by a dualistic worldview that views the material world as flawed and evil, created by an inferior deity known as the demiurge, while the spiritual realm is good and pure. Gnostics believed that a divine spark of spirit was trapped within the material body and could be liberated through secret knowledge, often imparted by a spiritual messenger like the Christian figure Jesus. Core beliefs and concepts: secret knowledge, gnosis. The central tenet is that salvation comes from gnosis, a form of secret or esoteric knowledge, rather than through faith or works. This knowledge reveals a person's true divine nature and the way to escape the material world. Dualism. Gnosticism presents a strong dualism between the spiritual and the material. The spirit is considered pure and divine, while the material world and body seen as corrupt and a prison. The demiurge. Gnostics believe the material world was created by a lesser, ignorant, or malevolent divine being called demiurge, not by the true supreme God. The divine spark. Humans are seen as possessing a divine spark or spirit that is a fragment of the higher spiritual world trapped within the physical body. Salvation. The goal of Gnosticism is to free the divine spark from the body and return it to the spiritual realm. This is often achieved with the help of a divine redeemer, such as Jesus, who descends to reveal the necessary gnosis. Historical context. The origin and influence. Gnosticism emerged before the rise of Christianity and influenced it, but it also existed alongside it as a competing worldview. some scholars consider it a form of heresy within or alongside early Christianity. The source of knowledge, a major challenge for historians, is that most Gnostic writings were destroyed by non-Gnostic Christians, and much of what is known comes from the writings of those who oppose it. Key texts that survived were discovered in the Nag-Hammadi library that declined, while most Gnostic sects faded by the end of the 6th century. Gnostic ideas have continued to influence modern spiritual movements. Gnostic versus Christian view the nature of Christ. Gnostic viewed Jesus as a spiritual messenger who came to impart secret knowledge rather than as a human who was resurrected. This stands in contrast to Orthodox Christian belief in the resurrection of the physical body, the Creator. Gnosticism posits a different view of the Creator God compared to traditional Christianity. Some Gnostics believe the God of the Old Testament was the demiurge, while Jesus referred to the true spiritual God, source of authority. Rather than relying on scripture or tradition alone, Gnostics sought salvation through a personal, internal revelation of knowledge. A bunch of foolishness. Like I said, that was the artificial intelligence overview. Now, so like I said, their so-called Gnostic mess, they don't know the exact origin of this foolishness and all this nonsense they be talking about ain't nothing but a bunch of made up lies. And it all, they try to take in and everything from the Jews with the Old Testament and try to blend it in. Then they did the same thing with the New Testament. Tried to use the text to lie to people. Like they said, the exact origin of Nazism cannot be traced. They don't know where it came from. They just take information from all these various ideas that already existed and they just make up a bunch of lies. Just like the demiurge. They just made it up. And as for the supreme being that you're talking about, this other supreme, that's just another thing that they did. They took that information and just made up another lie. See, that's all they do. They take the information that's already out there and they just lie. See, when you heard them say something about the supreme being, and when you talk about this demiurge, did you catch what they did? When they said something about the demiurge, but it was about their supreme being, they didn't say it was more than one supreme being. They ain't say that. And then when it came to the demiurge, what they say? They said it was just one. And that what they say about him, about this demiurge, that he was flawed and that, but they ain't say it was more than one. See, this information is not new. It's not new. And that's another thing they got to deal with, is that they took, just like about this demiurge, but it was all this philosophy that was already out there, that was already being taught. That's where the demiurge came from. And so, like I said, don't let people make a fool at you. Because that's all they done. Made a complete fool out of a lot of people. By making up a bunch of lies. That's all that Nazi mess is, a bunch of lies. Talking about the material world's evil. It's a bunch of homosexuals, a bunch of, what they call them, lesbians and gay. See, they'll use stuff like that as ammunition for them to promote this lifestyle. Lesbians and gay, as well as bisexual. And what's the other bisexual and transgender and transsexual. When it comes to little children, see, if you's a parent and you hearing about all this Gnostic mess, you should not hesitate to make sure that your child or children are not being influenced outside the home by this lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, transsexual. Because I guarantee you they trying to use this Gnostic mess as a weapon. You know, this the ideology to say there's some kind of God, you know, to legitimize lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, transsexual. Anything, what's the other binary and all the other mess they make up. Because, you know, they make up a lot of junk. They make up a lot of lies. And that's all it is, a bunch of lies. And they just lie. Just like talking about a supreme being. Just think about it. Just think about it. They ain't say it was more than one. Just think about it. They said, now, think about what they said. They said that, okay, there's the supreme being, and then there's this lesser demiurge. And this demiurge is ignorant, malevolent, and what else they say? Flawed, and claim that the demiurge is responsible for the material. And on that one, they didn't say it was more than one. See, this information is not new. And then you had all these different sets. And every time you do research on this, all the scholars and all the colleges and universities all over the world, they be debating about the exact origins. If you got to be still debating about the origins of Gnosticism, but think about the Manichaeans. They still talking about Prophet Mani. Think about Buddhism. They still talking about Buddha. Talking about the Hindus. Who they talking about? And of course, the Jews. The Jews still talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Still talking about Adam and Eve. Still talking about Moses. The origins of Judaism. And who else they talking about? God being what? One. See, that's what the Jews still talking about. They still saying one God. One God. Because everybody else was a polytheist. Had to fix my chair. But like I said, the Jews, one God, one. One. And then talking about there's a prophet, Moses. So you have to catch what these Gnostics be trying to do with information that was already available. And then they start talking to people, trying to spread their lies with information that's already available. Like philosophy, Greek philosophy. See, they lie. And like I say, hey, the scholars at the college and university all over the world, they still debating about the exact origins of Gnosticism. They speculate on Alexandria. They speculate about Jews. They speculate about the Jewish Christians. They speculate, but they still debating today. In 2,500 years from now, they got the Nagamon Library and they still debating about the exact origins of Gnosticism. And what else? They got the all these Gnostic texts. They got the Berlin text, the Askew text, the Berlin text. No, these the texts before the Nagamon Library. Right. Yeah, that's what the Askew Codex. And they found it way back in the 1700s. The Berlin Codex back in the 1800s. They found the Bruce Codex also in the 1700s. And then and when you see these texts, the information is coming from the Old Testament and New Testament. Then you have the Nagamon Library. They found it in 1945. And then they got all this so-called Mandian text. So like I said, when you pay attention to the Nagamon Library, all this stuff they talking about coming out the New Testament, and then they making references to the Old Testament. You know, you ain't got sense enough to see what people trying to do, which is basically lie, straight to the point, lie. And since all that nonsense got destroyed, except the Nagamon Library, except the Bruce Codex and the ANC Codex and the Berlin Codex, since those codexes didn't get destroyed, a person or persons trying to claim that they are theologian, but you see it's always the Bruce Codex, the Berlin Codex, and the ASU Codex, and the Nagamon Library. And then don't forget the demiurge they talking about. This demiurge, one, but that's one deity is clumsy and ignorant. And then there's this dualism talking about there's this other supreme being that's hidden. One. See, information is not nothing new. And then it's this material world and the spiritual world. When you pay attention to the words they use, you talking about the spirit world and talking about the divine spark, talking about revelation. and saying that the material existence to be evil. Evil? Where you get that from? Where you get evil from? Where that come from? Evil. Where did it come from? And what is this you believe? Salvation. Where you be getting these words from? But you don't know the exact origin of Gnostic, but the words that you use been in existence for years. You be using all these words that's been in existence for years. Evil. But the scholars, they don't know the exact origins of Gnosticism. But if you ask the scholars about these words, they're going to tell you that the idea you're talking about has been in existence for years. The Supreme Being. One. They can trace it, and they can tell you the origin of this concept of one Supreme Being. But the scholars don't know the exact origin of Gnosticism. And what is this you talking about? This spiritual knowledge. The scholars, they don't know the exact origin of Gnosticism. But this concept of spirit been around for years, and they can tell you about the origin of this concept of spirit. So like I said, excuse me, they claim a lot of things in a lot of this so-called Gnosticism. But it's a lot of information that was around way before. There was even a mention of a Gnosticism. And then all this diversity. When you can't get your lie right, that's the reason why it's so much what they call it diversity. That's the reason why, like the scholars been telling you, they don't know the exact origins of Gnosticism. But when you start talking about the concepts of God, gods, it's a very old concept. Spirits, it's very old. Excuse me. It's very old. So like I said, when we talk about spirits, that's a very old idea. Shamanism, animism. So like I said, a lot of information the scholars, they can trace back the origins, but they don't know the origins of Gnosticism. See, all this speculation, all this debate is to make sure, is to be clear that they really just can't identify who, what, where, when, and why about Gnostic. And like we've been talking about, and we're going to continue to talk about, prehistoric religion. See, this is when you don't negate prehistoric religion, which has been around the Paleolithic, which is divided into lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic. You had all these hunter-gatherer societies. And when we talk about where we as human beings come from, see, like the scholars at Cosby University has been telling you all over the world, that when you talk about religion in the lower and middle Paleolithic, it's speculation, legend. What's that word? Cognitive. Cognitive or cognizance. Cognition. See, when you try to trace the origins of Gnosticism, and you talking about supreme being and a demiurge, a lower god, and see, this is when you had to bring these things up about the information that's being talked about in this Gnostic. For example, talking about spirits. See, cognition in the Paleolithic. Now, in the lower Paleolithic and the middle Paleolithic, what you call religion is speculation. It's speculative. Cognition. But there's a very important point to bring out, that the scholars at colleges and universities all over the world, now we pretty certain about the lower and middle Paleolithic, that what you talking about religion, didn't have the cognitive capacity. Now, when it gets to the upper Paleolithic, you start hearing things about ritual, burials, and pretty much having an idea like what you're talking about, like during that period of time. And another thing we want to point out is this: about them stone tools. Trying to survive. The hunter and the gatherers. The stone tool during the lower and middle Paleolithic. And they were still using, in the upper Paleolithic, stone tools. But there was also other things being done in the upper Paleolithic besides making stone tools. But stone tools were still being made in the upper Paleolithic. That's when we start hearing things about religion. And they also made mention about something in the upper Paleolithic, faith healing. And so, some of these things have been passed down from generation to generation. So like we've been talking about, they saying that they don't know the origin of narcissism. See, that's the reason why when you're talking about spirit in the upper Paleolithic, you talking about altered states of consciousness, even faith healing being brought up. See, these things are going back in the past. Then you get to this Gnostic nonsense, and you start talking about a supreme being, according to the scholars in college universities all around the world. Polytheism, or this concept about, this higher power. Supposed to be more than one. Supposed to be more than one. Now they not too exact on that. They, presumably, polytheists. But it was before monotheism. One. No supreme being, higher power. So, like I said, when we talk about this so-called Gnostic foolishness, that's what it is, a bunch of foolishness. If you sit there and let somebody try to convince you that you really stupid. You really stupid. Anytime the scholars at colleges and universities all over the world are still debating, and what they debating about the origin of Gnosticism today, all over the world, you stupid. You stupid. It's just like going around talking about some lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, transsexual, and trying to use Gnosticism as a way to validate that nonsense. In colleges and universities all over the world, the scholars, they are debating. Anybody say anything, they get attacked by other scholars. Then those scholars get attacked by other scholars. They ain't gonna never stop debating. And now they got the nag of my library. They already had the ANSQ Codex. They already had the Berlin Codex and the Boots Codex. Then they found the nag of my library in 1945. And let's not leave out the fact that in 1946 they found the Dead Sea Scroll. Took 10 years to collect all the Dead Sea Scroll. Took 10 years. You ain't talking about nothing. Talking about some Gnostic. All you doing is taking information that's already available and distorting. Get straight to the point. You lie. That's all you're doing, lying. That's all you're doing, lying. It's the reason why you got all this stuff going on in Europe. See, think about this lying stuff. Philosophy. The Manichaeans. Prophet Mani. Then you got the Buddhists, Buddha, the Hindus. And then let's not leave out Islam. Islam, in the 6th century. This so-called Prophet Muhammad. Talking about monotheism. One God. And you talking about some Gnostic. See that? You see what I'm talking about? Just think about it. When they came up with, this Prophet Muhammad. Monotheism. One God. See, when you talking about this Nag Hammadi library and these codexes, the scholars already tell you when they wrote this stuff. When they wrote, let me click over here to these codex. It's just like the Acts of Thomas in the 3rd century. The Acts of John, the 2nd century. Now they talking about this Bruce Codex. And it got the Book of Jude. They saying that Book of Jude was around the 3rd century. And then there was an untitled text. Saying it might have been most probably dates around 350 CE. See, when you start looking at these texts, and when they were written, like the Berlin Codex, okay, that was the Bruce Codex, the Berlin Codex, the Gospel of Mary. You see, the gospel mirror. Scholars be debating about that. They saying it was written around about the 2nd or 3rd century. When you keep talking about somebody writing something, where's your common sense? Then the scholars, okay, when they talk about this mirror, right? Do you not see the scholars having debate about who the identity of who this Mary is? But you talking about you got these people that claim to be a Gnostic. You can't even get an answer for them. Well, who was this Mary? We don't know. The Apocrypha of John. They don't know where it came from. It was dated around about the 4th century. And then you got all this Nagamon library. The Nagamon library, all this junk. A lot of this stuff they can't even say who, what, where, when, why about who did, but it's all during the first century. So like I've been saying, hey, they found all this Nagamon library and all this stuff and nothing but a bunch of lies. Because they can't even tell you what a lot of the stuff was written during the first century. So like I said, and then all this stuff about writing. People make a fool at you. They will. They'll make a fool at you. Make a complete fool at you. They'll try to influence you to be a lesbian, to be gay, to be bisexual, to be transgender, transsexual. Yeah, they will. They'll make up all kind of lies. But don't think that they, want to try to influence you with this so-called Gnostic nonsense. And going around being violent. Like the barbarians and Scythians and all that, the Hellenism and just being violent. The Protestants, violent. Yeah, the Protestants, the ones who reject church tradition. Based on bigotry, prejudice, and racism. Talking about they don't want to listen to the church fathers. One thing don't never overlook or forget that many of the church fathers were Afro-Asiatics, not Europeans. Just they were many of the church fathers were non-Europe, Indo-Europeans. Trying to be violent, talking about the gang. What time is it? Well, we're gonna come back on my next video, so we ain't gotta try to put in and everything, but we want to put emphasis on today. We want to stay on this emphasis. When you be talking about this Gnostic and some of these words and all this, when the scholars say they don't know the origin, what do that mean? That's what it means. When the scholars tell you they don't know the origin, see, a lot of information that was already available before the Mandeans, before a lot of just like burials. Now we talking about prehistoric religion. How long they been doing burials? How long they been doing human and animal sacrifices? For a very long time. How long have they been talking about deities? How long have they been talking about fertility? A long time. A long time. But the scholars don't know the origin of Gnosticism. See, when the scholars study, they study language, they study communication, just like their artwork that's on the walls, in the caves, those Venus figurines. See, the scholars, they study. They do research. That's what it means when they don't know the origin of Gnosticism. But they know the origin of Judaism and polytheism. Start talking about Yahweh. The scholars know that. They know the origin. Yeah, they do. All over the world. The scholars are going to tell you, we know the origin of Yahweh. And we also know the origin of Jehovah. We know the origin of Jehovah. But we don't know the origin of Demiurge. But take it back. Demiurge, Plato. We don't know the origin of Gnosticism and this foolishness you talking about, the supreme being on top, and then there's this other clumsy, ignorant Demiurge. And both of them are one. Both of them. Not just one, both. Where do you get that concept from? From Islam? Because all over the world, when you talk about monotheism, before Christianity, Judaism. So when you hear them talking about this supreme being up here, one, and then there's this second lower deity, one. That's the reason why they spend so much time talking about the Bible, Jesus. Because they already told you that it was a lot of these so-called Jews who had been converted, Hellenized Jews, because they had been conquered first by the Greeks and then by the Romans. People they'll make a fool at you. Now, let me say this. We're going to continue to be talking about prehistoric religion, traditional, ancient African religion, indefinitely. Now, let's not forget the branches of science, formal sciences, natural sciences, social sciences. Let's not forget applied science, as well as engineering and medicine, and the fields of science, which is individual branches by themselves, like, for example, like physics and chemistry and so on and so forth. And in all that science, all the science, mathematics. Don't overlook mathematics. Because you got to have all this equipment. For example, the computer. You got to have all this equipment. So you can't overlook mathematics, because mathematics is a language. You can't overlook mathematics. It's very important. So get ready to end today's video. But just want to say this about, I know that the holiday season is coming up, and I know that at this point in time, you know, there are a lot of people struggling because of this. I'm gonna just say that one of the reasons why is because of this government shutdown. And so, like I said, you know, I don't think this will be something that'll happen again with the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Not just at the federal government, you know, but also at the state and local. With this Democratic Party and Republican Party. Because, see, everybody don't live in the same location. So if you hear something, this nonsense comes up again, see, that's the first thing. See, everybody don't live in the same location. So people start talking about different things, and next thing you know, somebody's trying to suggest. I don't think this is going to happen again. It's too many federal employees that's not getting a paycheck, and also a lot of federal employees, you know, male and female, you know, use, you know, government assistance. And they struggling. And not just, you know, government assistance, but federal programs. When you're talking about the government is shut down, that means federal, you know, the federal funding just not there. So a lot of businesses are being affected because of the shutdown. Not, and then add the tariffs, but the government shutdown is not just about the SNAP benefits, but it's, you see all these federal employees not getting a paycheck. And then you got all these federally funded programs. What about students who get scholarships? They're not getting no money because it's a government shutdown. See, it's a lot of things that's being affected by this government shutdown. A lot of businesses that include, like non-profits and things like that. A lot of federally funded programs. Not just food stamps, federally funded programs like scholarships. I mean, we can go on and on. Just like if there's, even though Social Security might not be, but still, if the federal government is shut down, that's still the federal government. It's still the federal government. Then, and I know many senior citizens, they get food stamps. Many senior citizens get food stamps. And then you think about prescription drugs. I mean, I can't identify all the areas that the federal government, but there's a lot of federally funded programs that are also being affected because of the government shutdown. I can't see this happening again. I'm just going to be honest. Any suggestion, I'm going to be ready to go to Washington, D.C. That's just me. I'm going to be ready to march all the way up to Washington, D.C. Because you can't, no. Because that's my point of view. I don't agree with trying to use it as a method of trying to get some bill passed. Well, let me ask you this. Okay, when you hear the Democrats talking about, or the Republicans talking about health care, let me ask you this. Well, what about all them other bills you're going to try to get passed? See, they only made a big issue about one, some health care. Okay, some subsidy in health care. So they say, look, we're going to shut the whole government down. Okay. But then, let me ask you this. What about all them other government programs? What about all the other that the Democrats and Republicans can't agree on? Every time they can't agree on something, the solution is just shut the whole damn government down. Now, how many people just gonna sit there and not ask this question? Why is it you trying to make it sound like it makes sense? Because just think about it. At this point in time, what instigated the government shutdown this time is only one particular issue. It was about health care. Just that one issue that the Democrats and the Republicans couldn't agree. So they did what? Shut the government down. But what I want to say is this. Okay, after you resolve this one issue, what's going to be the next issue? That the Democrats and the Republicans going to pull this damn crap again. That's the reason why I'm sitting here saying, look, it can't be no another issue. It can't be no next time. It can't happen again. It can't. You can't do that. No, every damn time the Democrats and Republicans can't agree, we just go shut the damn government down. No. You can't do that. No, you can't. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. So I'm telling you, on this at this particular time, I wonder how many federal employees gonna just sit there and think about this time. Because you know it and I know it. That's what instigated this whole government shutdown. It was about health care this time. One issue. So I was sitting there, I'm like, you know what? When they resolve this time, don't you know it's some more issues that the Democrats and Republicans don't agree about? Come on now. Do you honestly not sit there? Come on now. You can't know every damn time the Democrat. No, man. This can't happen no more. This all is straight to the point. You can't do that. You can't do that no more. After this, you can't do that. Because it's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong, man. It's wrong. There ain't nothing right about doing that. You ain't solved nothing. What time is it? Few minutes. Yeah. 5:30. I'm gonna be through. But I guess But like excuse me. Can you see that? That can't happen. Because like I said, you know, and we all know the same thing. That this government shutdown was instigated about health care. Supposedly. It was just one issue. They got on, Democrats and Republicans disagree, so shut the government down. But what I was saying, I was sitting there, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, man. It's gonna get to the point where the Democrats and Republicans gonna come up with a compromise, and then they're gonna end the shutdown. But what I'm saying is this: okay, when you end this shutdown and you come up with a compromise, the Democrats and Republicans gonna have these other issues that they don't agree about. Excuse me. How many Americans gonna sit there and just sit there and then talking about a government? Do you see how many people walking around? Do you see how many people are trying to get help from these charitable organizations for food? I'm right here in Shelby County in the city of Memphis. In the city of Memphis, which is in Shelby County, the state of Tennessee, which is pretty much the largest area in the state of Tennessee. Do you not see the people that need help? Not just the homeless. People need help. They're on the verge of getting put out. They're on the verge of being homeless. They starving. The children need help right here in Shelby County. Now me, I'm not a government employee. I'm just, by myself. Going to work. I got a job. Not a government job. A warehouse job. But I'm still going to work. There's a lot of people that need help. Need help. I'm talking about a lot. The local food banks on the verge of running out. And it's not just in this county. See, this problem is a nationwide problem. People need help all around this country. They need help. I can't even see how all of the government employees, for example, U.S. military or whatever, then some of them get social, spouses, get food stamps. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, man, what's going to happen the next time when the Democrats and Republicans can't agree on a compromise? What's going to happen? Or better yet, what's going to happen when, like President Trump, he don't agree if for some reason they lose the majority in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, and the Democrats get the majority. So now it's the Democratic Senate and the Democratic House of Representatives, and Trump can't agree. Shut the government down. Or vice versa. Just like now. You got the president, Republican, the Senate. They just had an election this Tuesday. The Senate, House of Representatives, whatever, you know. I don't know if the Democrats, Republicans, you know, who got the majority or who, you know. But the point is this. How many people just going to sit there and the next time the Democrats and the Republicans can't agree on some issue and shut the government down? You know, shut the government down. That's the answer. That's the solution. Just shut the government down. And that's going to solve the problem. Shut the government down. Man, I'm on the verge of, you know, march on Washington. You know, I'm serious. March on Washington. Because by the time how many people gonna have gas? If you got all these government employees, they ain't got no job, they ain't got no gas money. So if you gotta go to Washington D.C., most likely you ain't gonna drive. You might have the air traffic controllers again gonna be out of work. Do you think you gonna fly? Because look what's happening now. Look what's happening right now. Delays. You don't know when you might get on your plane gonna leave. Because the air traffic controllers, you know, they not getting no pay. I'm surprised they even at work. How can you make somebody come to work when they not getting paid? How can you make somebody come to work and you not even paying them? I'm surprised the planes just, you know, just the company. I'm surprised some of these airlines still in business. I'm surprised they still in business. And the companies that provide the fuel for the plane, they're gonna be affected. See, all it is just one, and then that's gonna lead to all these non-government employees like the gas companies or who provide fuel for the airplanes. They're gonna have to lay some people out because the planes ain't flying. The air traffic controllers, they not on strike. They not getting no pay. And all of the TSA, you know, just all these airport employees. See, that's how it's starting to look. See, it's just a matter of time before it starts to really start getting people attention on how our economy gonna be affected, not just at the government business, but you know, the government job, but then you're gonna have all these civilian jobs that's gonna be affected. Because government employees, they ain't got no money, so they can't buy no groceries, they can't do nothing. They ain't got no money. So the local economy around this country gonna be affected. Because you got all these government employees who not getting a paycheck. They ain't got no money. See, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. So, like I said, I'm just wondering, you know, like how long it's gonna be before people be be talking about a march on Washington. Because if it be a next time, I don't see how it could be a next time. If the Democrat Republic even suggests, even, you know, be like, man, look, I might have to take out work, put in PTO or something. Might have to take out work, man. I got to march on Washington, man. I got to go up to Washington, man. I got to go march on Washington. I got to go to Washington, D.C. and protest. You know? Because this ain't making no sense, man. I got to go to Washington. I just can't I can't stay in Shelby County. I got to march on Washington. I got to do like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A poor people's march. Because with all this damn mess going on, it ain't nothing but poor people. People who once had a 5 or 6 figure job, now you poor. You know? You ain't got no job no more. And then all the people who had a civilian job who was dependent on government, that's gone. It really will be a poor people's march. That's the reason why you just can't. I know me. I can speak for myself. I could, if it be anything I hear in the news about the next time, I know I can't. It's not that I don't want to say. It's just I can't. Because in some direct or indirect, I'm gonna be affected. And then first of all, I don't agree. That's the thing that's gonna push me, is that behind this, it was really stupid the last time and the time before that to even suggest talking about shutting the government down. I don't agree with it. No, I ain't absolutely not gonna sit idly by and talking about no government shutdown again. No, absolutely not. No, nope. Look, what time is it? Oh, okay, yeah. It's gonna be 2 hours. This video gonna be 2 hours. You know, what's the day? Today's Sunday. You know what? Let me say this. Being in Shelby County, being in the city of Memphis, and I can say this. We listen to gospel music. We listen to gospel music in this county. Cause I mean, on Sunday morning, and then even in the evening, like WDI gospel morning time, but I know at this time of the evening, and then like in the middle of the day, probably have church or some ministry or something, but gospel music, music, gospel music, and then you got B101 morning time. I know in the morning time they play gospel music on Sunday. 103.5 WRBO. They play gospel music in the morning. Yeah. And then B101, I found out, their sister station is, what's that, Hallelujah? 95.7 Hallelujah. That's a sister station of B101. They play gospel music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Then WLOK, they got AM and FM stations, because they got FM 105 and AM 1340. So that's gospel 7 days a week. 24 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, gospel. And then also 87.7 right on radio. On Sunday morning they play gospel. Yeah, Sunday morning they play gospel. They play gospel music. And then Power 104.1, the source. Oh yeah, this all they have gospel program, church program, but they gospel music, as well as preaching and things of that nature. It's pretty much all day Sunday, all day Sunday. All day Sunday. All day. Like I said, WDI, is Sunday, WDI 1070 WDI, AM station. They gospel, church, Sunday. So I like I said, in this part of the country, in Shelby County, but that's a good thing to say. That just goes to show that people in this area support gospel music. They're church going people. It might not be the you got Catholic churches in this area. And then you got all these Protestant like churches and stuff like that. But in this area, gospel music as well as church, is pretty prevalent in this area. It's pretty prevalent in this area, which is saying that's a good thing. When you have some moral values, even and that don't mean like fall short, because God's word, the Holy Bible. If I fall short, I had to repent. But still, those values very strong in this area. And that's I can say that's a good sign. That's a good thing to say, that in this area, the Holy Bible is strong. The values of the Holy Bible is strong in this area. Oh yeah, it's very strong. That's a clear sign when you see all that gospel music and then on the station, even with the gospel music, you have church services and stuff that's broadcast, and then that's not even in television station. Television station. They have a church program on Sunday morning, and then throughout the day, some kind of programming on Sunday. Church. Now we do have Jews, Jewish religious houses of worship in which is still good, still good, as well as Islam, but my church gospel music, is very strong in this area, which is good, Look at what time it is. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end today's video, and again, my name is Eric D. Johnson, also on BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis. It's in the county, Shelby, the state of Tennessee. I thank my family, my support for your continued encouragement, support, and thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God, for all the blessings and the guidance He provides us all with. Continue to pray about these natural disasters, because we hear about them all the time, in the news, on like radio, television, on the internet, the World Wide Web, and they pretty devastating. Natural disasters, they very devastating. People lose lives, a lot of lives get lost, property, and so continue to pray, and let's continue to pray about the ending of wars being fought on this earth, on this globe, on this planet. Let's just continue to pray that we be able to live in peace on this earth. And I'm gonna come back on my next video. We're gonna pick it right back up where we left off: prehistoric religion and traditional ancient African religion. And again, don't let people make a fool out of you with this stupid Gnostic nonsense. You should see that the scholars at colleges and universities all around the world, they continue to debate about the origins of Gnosticism. It's so much information that was around before there was even any consideration about some Gnostic. All kind of words and all type of things that people did or didn't do before you even talked about a Gnostic. So, until next time, take care of yourself, and I wish each and every one of you the very best.